Hi, I'm Jim Huffman, and welcome to the Shopify Growth Show, where we dive into what's actually working to scale Shopify brands. Hey, running an e-commerce store is tough, but you don't have to do it alone. Each episode, I talk to founders who've grown from idea to 7 or 8 figures, plus experts who share what's driving real results. And we're in the game too. My Shopify growth agency, GrowthHit, acquired its own brand, Neat Apparel, and we're pulling back the curtain to show what's really working as we scale the business. Want the latest Shopify tactics and insights delivered straight to your inbox? Subscribe to the Shopify Growth Insider by GrowthHit. Every week, we break down 5 top growth tactics for Shopify and brands. Find the link in episode notes below, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. So, Kendra, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jim. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So, how do we know each other? When I say know each other, we've been friends for 9 minutes now. How do we know each other?
We got connected through a good friend of mine, actually from my business school. And I don't know, how do you and Mike know each other?
Yeah. So, I'm on the board of a company with this guy named Mike Ryan, and he's the chairman of it. And it's funny, like going to this board, it's this guy that has an MBA from some place called Stanford. I'm like, oh, here we go, an MBA. And he has been so impressive. He is one of the sharpest guys I know. I love people that are real, like original thinkers and approach things in a thoughtful way. And it's, I try and channel Mike whenever I'm going into like really thoughtful feedback. So I think maybe that investment in the MBA was worth it. So he's a really impressive dude.
Impressive, funny, humble, the total package. But no, I'm grateful to Mike for linking us up.
Yeah, no, really cool. And so you guys are in a category that's near and dear to my heart around wine. So first, give the spiel so people know, like, what is Maker Wine?
Yeah. Maker is the leading craft canned wine company on the market today. We have the highest rated and awarded wines out there in a can. And we're also special because every wine comes from a different winery and winemaker. And so in a growing sea of canned wines, what really makes Maker stand out is who made your wine, where it came from, and actually can learn a lot more about that without having to trek to Napa, Sonoma, or the winery yourself. So really trying to reimagine wine from grape to glass, and as millennial women, kind of putting ourselves at the center.
Yeah, and I've worked with some wine brands that have tried to crack the code on D2C, direct to consumer. And like obviously like Wink had an amazing rise and then they couldn't land the plane on retention. And you all were kind enough to send me some canned wine. We're like elevating Franzia from the bag to the can. And here's why I really like it is because as like my wife and I are wine drinkers, if it's like a Tuesday or Wednesday, like I don't want to open a bottle and it's like we're not trying to like go to town. It's like I just want a little glass. And what's really nice about your product is that it is in a can. It's still really good. And you're not opening a full bottle because I think some other companies have had issues when they're doing the like wine subscription where it's just their vineyard and people are used to going to get it at a store. And it's the bottle play. So I think you have a really smart go-to-market strategy and approach with the way you all are doing that. And again, I'm not just saying that because you gave me some free booze. It was fun to go through the unboxing experience and everything. But like, how are you able to work with the vineyards to get the wine, get it canned, and in a way where like the economics work out?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the kind of production winemaking side, we are so fortunate to now work with more than 15 wineries across California, Washington, and soon to be Oregon. And we really let the winemakers and the wineries do what they do best, which is grow grapes in the vineyards, be amazing farmers, organic, sustainable, biodynamic, crush grapes, pick them, ferment them, and actually make the wine. And one of the things that we found as we, moved into the wine industry was these people are incredible. They are farmers and artists and geologists, and they're doing great wine the right way, but they really didn't have that route to market. And so that's why our mission is to shine a light on these independent producers, and the whole company, exists to kind of lift them up. In terms of the unit economics, we take possession of the wine when it is in the can. So the winemaker is making the juice, it's on site at the winery, it's in their barrels, it's in their tanks. And just like you were bottling it, we send actually a mobile canning line to the winery. We can straight from the tanks alongside our winemaker partners. It's super fun if you ever want to come out and work an assembly line for a day or two. And then from there, we actually, as you mentioned, specialize in D2C, direct to consumer shipping. So last year, D2C was more than 80% of the revenue of the company. And truthfully, like, there is a code to be cracked in D2C wine. And you named a couple of, companies that have come before us, and we've been students and stewards. And, I have a little bit of a bone to pick with people who say that D2C wine won't work. And there's really two key aspects to making, that side of the math work. One you touched on is retention. It is, expensive to reach customers. And there's a lot, if you're going to pay anything to acquire customers, online and wine D2C, they just have to stick around for a long time in order for that model to work. The second thing that is super critical is the actual economics of each shipment. So the retention or the lifetime value is looking at that customer's lifetime. For us, we spend a lot of time looking at what are the economics of this shipment. And so our average order values are well above $100. And when you crosswalk that with good retention, what it means is that we have the ability for every, we're going to talk more about the Can Club, but for every new subscriber or Can Club member that we get, we know that we're going to retain, engage, and actually, if we do our job right, they're going to be spending more money on Maker and getting more wine from Maker a year from now. And that, both the lifetime customer economics and the individual order and purchase economics, we spend a lot of time making sure that all checks out. Because if you don't do it right, if you are shipping a low AOV product in wine, shipping costs, adult signature requirements, it's a huge percentage. So if you can get an AOV up above 200, you have a much, stronger business, better margin profile. You can do a lot more with that than those AOVs under 100.
Yeah, you nailed it. Like with Wink, they were phenomenal at customer acquisition, but they were like $30 for 4 wines, free shipping, and like shipping alone costs $30 sometimes. And it's like, how do you land a plane? They couldn't flip it on the retention. But what I love that you're doing is the AOV. And for me, like, again, I'm a market of one. The use case of the can is so high that we would do that because we have like subscription wine from like a vineyard we like. So we know we want those bottles, but like you're satisfying a whole nother use case and need that for me, I think is really sticky, right? So well done there. But I know I started off real hot with the tactics and stuff, but I like to
AOVs and retention. I love it.
People are like, oh my gosh, they're talking about AOV already. So I like to go in this in a linear fashion as we kind of get to this narrative, like why you tried to like burn the boats, go all in on like canning wine and like that became a business. But first, talk to me about Kendra, pre-wine entrepreneur. Like what was your kind of like path leading up to this? And even that inflection point of you going to business school and doing this. But I'd love more color.
Sure. Well, I did not come from the crazy wild world that is Silicon Valley. I am a Midwesterner born and raised. And I really, I was born in Chicago, went to college in Nashville.
Right, where in the Midwest?
Chicago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've lived in Minneapolis. I spent a year in New Orleans. I worked in consulting for several years, but truthfully, my background was in healthcare. It was in consulting, and it was very much not in this world of startups and venture capital and high growth companies. Right. And I was fortunate beyond my wildest dreams to wake up one day in business school at Stanford. And it really did, it really did change kind of a lot of things in my life. It changed my perspective. It showed me that people that looked like me and came from the places that I had come from could start companies. That wasn't something that I had considered before. And going into business school, actually, the week before we started, I met my now best friend, co-founder, partner in wine, Sarah. And we first hit it off as friends and lovers of food and bev. Sarah's background was completely opposite to mine. She was born and raised in the Bay Area, in the heart of the American wine country. She knew about startups. She'd worked in growth marketing and advised different startups throughout San Francisco. And she came into business school knowing that she wanted to start a company. And so we were at these kind of, two different poles. And she also was a total food and bevy. And once when you get to know Sarah, she had a craft beer blog that she would SEO optimize for fun. She worked with a bunch of the craft breweries around town. She had an underground supper club that she would do the beer pairings, and a chef friend, they'd co-host in people's homes. And so that kind of, caring about craft and where things come from and the stories behind what we, eat and consume and drink, that is really central to who Sarah is. And I wanted to be her friend because she was cool and she knew all the best places to go visit. And so that was what brought us together. But to answer your question, I didn't come from a world of startups and venture, and I didn't know that that was what I wanted until I saw it around me. And, truthfully, have never looked back. I think if there's folks listening that are considering, starting their first venture, taking that plunge, try it on for size first, take little baby steps in. But if it's something that you're curious about, you have that itch, it's nagging at you, you got to do it. There's nothing more aligning in my life personally than aligning my work and my passions to, now what I get to do every single day. And so I am a huge proponent of, I go back to Nashville. I spend a lot of time in Chicago. And I think it's just important for people all over to see, that you can start companies, create products too. But that was how I met Sarah. And that was how I found myself out in wine country for the last 6 years now.
That's so cool. And did you go to business school? Because that's a big kind of transition in the career. Was it because you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or you're like, you know what, let me see what doors or opportunities open by making this kind of like move? Was there like any...
Totally the latter. I would have never said I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't even like have that thought, candidly. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but I just didn't even know it or think it. I'm a nerd. I wanted to go back to school, and I wanted the time and space in my life to imagine different paths forward. I was so focused on my work at the time. I loved my job. And I kind of had this aha moment that unless I gave myself a half a step back and some extra time and space to do that thinking, I was probably just going to keep going down the trodden path that I was on. And I wanted the opportunity to rethink that. That was what made me want to go to business school.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So let's talk about, is business school the right move? Because like, I'm actually not an opinionated person. I do have opinions on MBA, and I'll give you my context. And I think there's like one use case where I think it makes sense, and I think you nailed it. So like, so just so you know, my jaded background, I worked in investment banking for a while, where you had to like get an MBA to like get promoted, and I felt like it was just this tax you had to pay. So I was studying for the GMAT, doing the whole thing, and I just I couldn't do it anymore. I was in New York. I was like, I physically cannot take this test. And I left and went to startups and did this path. However, for me, it's like an MBA, if you can get into one of the elite schools, the doors and network it can open is huge, because the biggest thing in business are your relationships, whether people want to admit it or not. And if you can get access to get a shortcut to some amazing people, go for it. But if you're going to go to a place that doesn't have that network, I feel like you're potentially burning 100 to 200K on fire, and you should just use that to launch a company. So so I think you and Mike nailed it, because it's you get into a place like Stanford, go for it. But as you reflect, obviously it allowed you to meet your co-founder and it's opened this door, but what are the pros and cons of it for people that are thinking through it after you hear my biased opinion?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're, spot on and very sage in some of your observations. But I think, like most things in life, there's not a right answer here, and it's a super personal decision, right? And so for some people, going back to graduate school is not an option. And I do not think it is necessary by any means in starting a company, in building out your network. And I think there's ways to go about the kind of core value adds of an elite business school if you decide that isn't the right path to go for you. If you are someone who wants to be in school, wants to, my undergraduate degree was in neuroscience and medicine, health, and society. I've never taken a base accounting or econ class in my life, right? It's like, if I want to move into true business, I need to kind of double down on that too a little bit. So there was kind of that thought, but there's so many ways out there right now. And between so much online, so many things in person right now, building out your network, getting the time and space in your life to do that thinking. These are all things that you can do outside of spending 100 or 200K on an MBA. So is it helpful? Absolutely. For the right people, it's great. For the wrong people, if you don't want to do it, absolutely do not. Like, it is not a silver bullet. It's not a catch-all. And unless you want to spend a couple of years really introspecting and thinking about what you want to do for the rest of your life, just don't go, right? Because it really is like that. I think is the best use of it. And so I don't know. It's a non-answer. I'm going to dodge the question, but it's a personal decision.
That was a good non-answer. I think the fact that you didn't have a business undergrad degree, and then you can just learn real quick at a place like Stanford, super impressive. So you're getting your MBA, you meet your now co-founder. Talk about that moment, or what was the process of Maker Wine coming to be something that was more than just a half-baked idea, and when you decided to kind of make that leap and what that even means.
Totally. So Sarah and I had first hit it off as friends, as I mentioned, and we had a few classes together. And so naturally, as friends, we wanted to be in the same group projects, so we could hang out together. And we started to learn that we really enjoyed working together, and also that we had really complementary skill sets and interests. And this is my key insight picking a founder advice, is because everybody says don't have multiple MBAs on a founding team. Too redundant, they're going to clash, who wears the hat. I actually think for me and Sarah, we had such complementary interests and skill sets and backgrounds that 1 + 1 was so much greater than 2 for the two of us. And we felt that from the get-go. Here's what I'll tell you about Sarah, having come from San Francisco, going to business school, knowing that she wanted to start a company. She was kind of on the hunt, right? She had hunches about her ideas. She was trying to put together the team. And it was really, it was wild. There was a moment, probably March or so of our first year of business school. And Sarah came to me and she said, I have this idea. I feel deeply in my core that it needs to exist in the world. And I'm going to spend, the next several years doing that. I know I need a co-founder and I want it to be you. Right. And I was like, ha ha, that's hysterical. Good, good joke. I'll drink a glass of wine with you and help you think through this. But I, again, had never really imagined that as myself. And Sarah said, no, out of all of our classmates at business school, I think you and I could really run at this and make a big dent. And her pitch was shockingly close to the story and ethos of Maker today. She said, I've watched a revolution happen in craft beer. There's been this huge adoption of cans, innovations in packaging, trying to reach this newer, younger audience. You're seeing craft exploding. And as a millennial woman, honestly, I can't drink a lot of craft beer. I am starting to move more into wine for health reasons and just socially. It seems to be where things are trending, but the wine experience just doesn't speak to me, right? And so I said earlier, being a millennial woman, and I was like, I agree. I don't want to go peruse the sea of shelves and look at the, pick the one with the shiny label or the right price point. And so that really got our gears going. And at the same time, we actually enrolled in a class on the wine industry, and we started immersing ourselves in everything in wine. And there's a lot in California, as you can imagine, everything that we could find. And that was where the kind of second aha moment from the company came. So the first was like, all right, tomorrow's consumer probably looks different than yesterday's in wine. Wine is still speaking kind of to my parents, no foul or no harm meant to them, but 750 milliliter glass bottles with the wannabe French chateau and the fancy, writing, that just wasn't doing it for us. And so we said, there's opportunity there. And then through this wine industry class, we started to realize that independent wineries are the lifeblood of the wine industry. They make the vast majority of wine by volume and by price sold, but they have been cut out of their pathway to market because of distributor consolidation, retailer consolidation, and this transition in wine from D2C, meaning you come by my tasting room, you join my twice a year wine club, to I have an e-commerce business, right, selling wine online. That's when we talk about D2C and wine, there's tasting room sales. Like that is still what wine thinks about as D2C. And then there's, how we kind of, again, like, I don't want to make it too generational, but like that, what we think of as a D2C experience. And so we really said, it seems that there's something there to these independent producers. They have great wines, great prices, amazing stories. We were just having the time of our lives driving around California, visiting Santa Cruz and Mendocino and Sierra Foothills, and we ended up meeting with more than 80 wineries in our second year of business school. And from that, Maker was born. And we said, let's marry these two ideas. Let's create a company that, sources wines from these best-in-class independent wineries, doesn't hide where it came from, right? Every single can has the varietal, the vintage, the region, and the name of the winemaker and the maker that made it, right? Why we called the company Maker. And we became the crazy can ladies. We started to test and get a lot of conviction around, cans taking hold of in wine in a way they had in beer, as they were in seltzer, of course, at the time. And so really that was how Maker was born, and some of our aha moments along the way.
That's so smart. The other component is hearing like you're riding this wave of like, you're seeing what's happening with craft beer. Can that happen to wine that's kind of lagging? You're also essentially this new distribution channel for these winemakers, right? As far as allowing them to get out there. Talk to me more about being the crazy can ladies as far as going to these wineries, and like, how hard of a sell is that, going to a winery and be like, hey, we're going to come here, we're going to can the wine for you, and then we're going to sell it? Like, is it a no-brainer, like, deal decision for them? Or like, how does that go? Because you have this almost like two-sided marketplace of like, you've got to get the inventory, get the wineries on board, and then it's like, okay, we've got to get the actual consumers.
Totally. Great question. So it was hard at first. Like winemakers, their brands, their wines are their babies, and that's where they've built brand equity. And, we really had to convince them that we were going to respect their brands, their price point. They were going to have, oversight along the way. And I'll tell you, it was hard at first for those reasons. They didn't know us. They didn't trust us. Cans had not been done in a premium way in wine yet. And so there was a leap of faith with our first 4 winemakers that we will never forget that group. And, the chances they took on us, we still do wines with 3 of them today, every single vintage. We have great wine partners. Today, what I'll tell you though, is we have a list of probably close to 150 wineries that are interested in working with Maker to feature their wines in our cans, and truthfully on our platform. And what it hits on is what you touched on. It's yes, Maker is a trustable, Instagrammable consumer brand, but underneath the surface, there's so much more there. And we're not only, bringing these independent producers' wines to consumers, we're helping consumers learn about these small producers, connect with them, follow them on Instagram, learn if they can go visit their tasting room, take their wines places, post about them. And so what started to happen very quickly after we launched the company is winemakers started coming to us and saying, I see that you're out there. representing great wines, great brands. And I'm interested in partnering with you. And so today sourcing looks very different. It's tough. We say no to far more wines than we say yes to, actually. But in the early days, it was a leap of faith.
Yeah. So it's like getting people that can get you a certain volume of wines. Maybe the economics have to work out or different thresholds. Because it's like, I think of like the subscription box movement. A lot of times you could get really good deals on your side because it's great marketing for people, right? I like this even a little bit more. I think this could be much stickier because like the one you sent me is from like Gilbert Cellars, like really nice insert where it's like, oh, we actually really did like the Cabernet. So it's like, that could be one we get going forward, right? So it's kind of like this free marketing channel for them. Like, is that what helps kind of lift the business up? Or is there like a future plan where it's like, hey, we're going to have all this data of what people like. We could start making our own wines.
Yeah. I mean, I'll answer the last question first. We called the company Maker because it's really important to us that it exists to lift up the makers of wines. You don't want wines that I make either, right? Like I'm not a winemaker. That's not what I'm good at. I'm good at building a business, distribution, digital, right? Like that's kind of our role in the puzzle. How it scales on the wine side has been really interesting. And I think for us, how we maintain quality as we scale is the biggest question. But essentially what you have to know is there's two types of SKUs that we have. There are the wines that we do limited production with new winery partners, new varietals. We release them D2C only, limited drops to the club. We'll do some kind of a feature. We did a Pride Month special release this year. Those are wines we'll do in very small quantities. And we do like to test to see how the wine holds up over the course of years, what customers think about it, what retail buyers think about it, right? And we've gotten the conviction to grow and scale some really interesting wines over time that we might not have otherwise because we put them in that program. So for example, Maker, one of our most awarded wines is called Cabernet Pfeffer. It's a super rare esoteric varietal from Santa Cruz, and there's some planted in France as well. We were the first people to do Cabernet Pfeffer in a can. Everybody said, from the trade side of the world, what is this? Our customers were fanatical about it. So we got the conviction. Now every year, people wait for our Cabernet Pfeffer release, right? And that's a pretty cool thing. Cool. The other SKUs that we have are the wholesale core SKUs. And those are the wines that, especially to grow the retail distribution side of the business, we can't run out of. We have to have consistency year to year. We have to have super competitive pricing, right? We can do small, higher priced wines for online. Buy it if you want it, no pressure, but we have to stay competitive in the wholesale channel. And so today we have 6 core SKUs that we have done all of them before in prior vintages in a can. We've worked with the wineries before, and that wine program is a little different than the limited.
Thank you for listening to the Shopify Growth Show. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps other Shopify founders like you find the show. Want more Shopify advice? Sign up to the Shopify Growth Insider newsletter by GrowthHit, where we break down the top 5 growth tactics every week. Remember, you're not in this alone. Building a Shopify brand is a grind, but you got this. Keep testing, keep scaling, and don't run out of larges on Black Friday like I did. Have a good one.